I found in myself, I was evidently asking people to repeat stuff. And I didn't know I was doing that as much because I would find myself almost saying, well, can you say that again? Well, no, I didn't need to do that any longer. So it was almost like a conditioned response when I was talking that evidently I was doing that more frequently than I thought, because when I quit doing that, I noticed that I quit doing that. Okay, well, my name's Larry Cristy, and I worked at Growmark, Ag Supply Cooperative, and my wife was with State Farm. I retired in 2016. So I grew up on a farm in northern Illinois up on the Wisconsin border, and in that era of farming, you didn't have insulated cabs that have soundproofing in them, as they do now. Very, very nice. So we were kind of out in the elements, and for many years, even in college, I'd be on a tractor. Then early on in my career, I worked around some kind of heavy equipment noise in my career before I got, different kinds of job opportunities. So there were a lot of years where loud sounds would have been hammering away at my eardrums, I'm sure. My noticing of hearing loss didn't really start until my mid-50s in age, mid-50s. And actually, I went to Natalie three or 5 years before she actually recommended that I needed hearing aids, which I gained a lot of confidence in. I was uncertain, I thought, well, geez, probably right away recommend hearing aids. And she said, you're kind of borderline right now. You don't really need them yet. Come back in a couple of years and we'll do another hearing test and see how it's evolving. What I started noticing at work, if I was in a meeting and I wasn't right up front next to the speaker, I could be in the middle of a room with 30 people or something and maybe not quite picking up on all of the words in a presentation, especially if it was a softer toned speaker, man or woman, frankly. One of my friends at work, Stan, I saw him pull this thing out of his pocket, and he was turning it up and down. I said, "What on earth are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm adjusting my hearing aids." I hadn't noticed he had hearing aids. So I said, "Well, you got hearing aids?" And he says, "Yep, I got them a little while ago." And Stan said, "Well, I'm not going to be the guy sitting in a room that can't hear everybody and say, what did you say? What did you say? I'm not going to be that guy." Well, that resonated with me quite solidly, and I thought, well, I don't want to be that guy either. Though Stan did say he had a special button on this controller that was the Larry button, and if he didn't want to hear me, he'd press the Larry button and turn me off. Well, it didn't have a Larry button, suffice to say, but that was kind of good advice. That's when I went back and we kind of got going on the process. Somebody who, and I can't remember exactly who, but had recommended Natalie and her group as a very thorough professional organization to deal with on such things. So I took that advice and ended up in their office. She did a great job of showing me lots of different kinds of hearing aids. There's several approaches to them. The other thing that they work really well, in my opinion, is there's a myriad of types of hearing aids. There's lots of different price points on hearing aids, and you don't have to go to the top end to get great hearing improvement at all. And they're excellent about explaining the myriad of hearing aids that there are, and they just want you to be comfortable and have the right stuff. So very professional. So the first set, I have my second set of hearing aids. The first set actually fit down inside my auditory canal. It took a few times. I didn't realize the fitting would be such a situation. But 3 or 4 times we tried different things. She's very patient. I wanted to make sure that I had the right equipment and the right fit, and that's part of the service they provided, was a real caring environment to get things right and adjusted. So that worked out very well. Well, first day with hearing aids, there are many things that I wasn't hearing that some not at all, some very faint. So you leave the office, and I suspect this is a rather classic occurrence, but you leave the office, you make your first turn with the directional going and it's clicking. Well, I don't know how many years I'd gone, I don't know, I didn't even think of it clicking anymore, I guess, and bing, bing, bing. I thought, well, holy mackerel, there's a new sound in my life. Not maybe the most important sound in your life, but nonetheless, that was a real indicator that I hadn't been hearing so precisely. So sounds from another room, if Diane was in another room or whatever, and then certainly the TV volume could be lowered quite a bit. So all that kind of stuff happened. You get, there is, and Natalie explained this very well prior to happening, as she left, she said, now you're going to hear some things that will take several days for it to kind of soften in. Really within the first 5 days, it settles in. It's just a matter of, well, I'm sure your mind and your ears are working together, and it just takes a while for that to all settle in. And it's kind of amazing how that happens. You don't have to do anything. it just kind of works out. Well, early adjustments for me particularly was the physicality of the hearing aid. The whole device was down on my auditory canal. So we had to try a couple different fittings before that became very comfortable. And but that's part of the process, all part of getting the right thing in the right spot. So yeah, so that they were very comfortable, worked really well. My hearing aids now are behind the ear with a slight tube going down in, just because there's a lot more technology that can be included in the package when you have that kind of a hearing aid. Well, on the newer set that I have, I use my iPhone to adjust the sound up and down sometimes. If you're in a restaurant, there's a restaurant setting, so you can kind of block out the sound and noise from other tables. It concentrates on your table alone, and that's a nice feature. You can also, when you answer a telephone call on your iPhone, there's a setting that it just automatically goes in your hearing aids. That's really handy. A Bluetooth setting that really works very well. And those are probably the two features I use the most. And I do find if I'm on social media or looking at YouTube or anything like that at home, Diane will be doing something else, and I've got I'll have that going, and music, and then she doesn't know. She doesn't know that I'm using my iPhone. It's into my things, and she'll, and then I have to pay attention to a couple different things going on there. But and that's a great feature, and I suspect it's probably safer for your ears also, for your hearing, I suppose. I'd say the big change in my life with hearing aids is just being able to hear better. I know I was having people repeat things. That's another thing when you first get hearing aids. I found in myself, I was evidently asking people to repeat stuff. And I didn't know I was doing that as much, because I would find myself almost saying, well, can you say that again? Well, no, I didn't need to do that any longer. So it was almost like a conditioned response when I was talking, that evidently I was doing that more frequently than I thought, because when I quit doing that, I noticed that I quit doing that. Not maybe a big thing, but it was a quality of hearing that absolutely ramped up incredibly. So, it's just conversations were a little easier, or are a little easier. Sounds from a distance that aren't real loud, absolutely improved with hearing aids. So whatever it is, some kid talking or whatever it is, a sound from a distance is dramatically improved. Certainly, after getting the hearing aids and being back at work, I could hear much better. Meetings, small group discussions, were just much better. That probably was the single biggest factor of getting them, and the single biggest improvement too. It just was a lot easier once I got them. A lot easier listening to people, taking notes in a meeting, figuring out what's going on was, The advice I'd have for people thinking about hearing aids, the holy grail is to get a hearing test. That's what really starts a person down the path of understanding whether they need it or not, or whether there's something else going on with your hearing. Having the hearing test, totally painless, really quick to do, but then you kind of know that's the key. You know what's going on, and then it can, and perhaps you don't need them right away, so you can wait for a while, but you get on that path if you know what to expect. I'm not that guy sitting in a room that can't hear. I am not that guy.